Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Steve Donovan, the Director of Alumni Relations at Trinity, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back to the virtual long walk tonight. I actually just got in from a walk. It's a perfect night here on campus on this last day of summer. And while we wish we could have you here with us in person, we're pleased we can at least come together virtually. In just 10 days, however, we hope to see many of you in person for homecoming weekend, where we will dedicate a new football stadium, the Tanzel Muldoon Stadium, and also welcome back several reunion classes who haven't been able to gather in person for a few years until now. Tonight, we're delighted to introduce you to another remarkable Trinity alum who has made quite an impact in her profession and gives us all a great reason to be Trin proud, as I like to say. And I'm also delighted that we've been able to recruit Trinity's finest interviewer to lead the conversation, and the person than none other than President Joanne Berger-Sweeney. Joanne was so enthused to be part of this conversation that she's actually joining us on the night of her own birthday. Oh. So without further ado, join me in welcoming the president and wishing her a very happy birthday. Thank you, Joanne.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve. Yes, it's right. The birthday girl is here. And there aren't so many things that I would agree to give up my birthday evening for, but this is a really special opportunity for us all. I have the pleasure of introducing and interviewing Stephanie Ritz, a member of the class of 1990. So let me tell you just a little bit about Stephanie and her background. She is a partner at William Morris Endeavor in the talent department. She represents a diverse roster of leading talent and filmmakers, including Oscar nominees and winners, Chloë Sevigny, Patel, Diane Keaton, Hugh Jackman, and Kenneth Branagh. Additional clients include David Harbour, Kristen Stewart, Olivia Rodrigo, and Robert Pattinson. I think that all of us would say she has A-list clients, without doubt. Now, Stephanie joined Endeavor in 1999. She transitioned to WME following the agency's merger with William Morris Agency in 2009 and was named a partner in 2010. She previously worked in International Creative Management, ICM, in New York City. She currently resides in Los Angeles, and yes, that is a real Los Angeles background behind her. We can see cars passing by occasionally, absolutely. So welcome from LA. She graduated from Trinity, as I said, in 1990, and she majored in English literature. She's a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and is a mentor through Big Brother and Big Sisters of Greater Los Angeles. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here, and happy birthday. My birthday is
thank you.
Now, you're a little cusp Virgo Libra.
Yeah, exactly. And cusp, you know, summer to fall, you know, lot going on there, but it's such a pleasure to be here with you. Now, you know, we're going to talk about your background, but where I want to start this conversation is a little bit what you do. I mean, what does it mean to, you know, to be in the talent department? Let's just start with kind of what that entails, and then I'll come back and ask some questions about how you got there, but let's just start with what it is.
This is the question that I never could actually answer for my own family and my parents, so I always give it a shot. What do I do every day? I mean, right. I'm an agent, and we sort of don't even differentiate these days between motion picture or talent. We represent artists. On a very basic level, we get them opportunities and we negotiate deals. But what what that entails is so vast, between reading scripts, deciding what movies or TVs or plays they're going to do. We could help a client option a book that he or she may direct, hire writers, get the financing for it. We are involved with philanthropic efforts on their part.
Mm-hmm.
We help find them endorsement opportunities. We are therapists. It is so vast, and every day is really different, but we are advocates for artists, and that takes many, many forms.
Right. So tell me, how often might you meet with some of these clients that I was listing? I mean, is it a weekly, a monthly? I assume it comes clumped sometimes, but kind of on average.
Clumps is a kind of a good word, because there's different phases. But for the most part, the people that you named, I'm probably either speaking to or texting with or WhatsApping or whatever it is, pretty much on a daily basis.
On a daily basis?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I didn't expect that answer.
I guess if you think about some of them, the amount of just incoming phone calls or things to be dealt with it's pretty significant. If you're an A-list movie star, people are going to be contacting you and asking you, if you might want to be in their project, and you just have to have the conversation and say, so and so got in touch, and what do you think? And so it's a lot, and you're also just part of logistical parts of their lives. If they're going to go shoot in London or something, like there's a lot to deal with.
So about how many clients do you think you can reasonably manage at one time?
Well, reasonably manage 0, but doing the best I can. I mean, I have varying degrees of contact with people, and some clients have bigger teams. So that's also part of being an agent, is that some of these people have, 10 agents working with them, because they will be directing or writing or involved in producing, or they're endorsement people. Like it's a very team-oriented thing in a lot of ways. So there are people who, for example, who I've represented for 18 years, and I've represented them since they were, very early in their careers, who I have very strong connection to and deal with every single day. And then there are people who I, don't have as much contact with, and it ebbs and flows. And as colleagues, we share responsibility for taking things on at different times.
Right. So I'm going to back up a little bit and ask you how you got to where you are now, and maybe trace a little history from Trinity to this point. So you were an English major, I think I wrote, or English literature major, it said. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to just generally what I was interested in as a young person, which was books, theater, movies, acting. I had no idea of what the business was. And when I knew I wanted to come east for college, and I went to a whole bunch of schools, and Trinity had a really significant instinctual feeling to me. Just when I visited. Wasn't my top choice. They didn't want me, but it was exactly the right place for me to be. However,
Yes.
it was, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I mean, I really, for a very long time, and I think that strangely, it got me to exactly where I should be, and to some place that I genuinely love. I remember being at Trinity, I would do plays, and I took playwriting classes, and I took all sorts of things that were actually super important in terms of doing my job, whether it's art or philosophy, psychology, all these things. Like a liberal arts education really prepares you to be in this business, but there's no real, communication. I don't even know what exists anymore, but there was nothing that was, I took film classes, but I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I was totally overwhelmed. I didn't even know if I'd ever have a job. And I was very lucky that one of my professors, Josh Carter, I was in a play, and he said to me, you should go to a professional acting school in New York. And I was like, okay, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And that was just buying 2 years of time. And he helped prepare me to go to an acting program. And I was not a good actor at all, but it was the right thing for me to do. And this is sort of a theme to kind of follow my curiosity into New York. And like, then that was just it was wonderful because I also had a lot of Trinity friends in New York and people who pursued the business as well. I won't name names, but I did like a play with a couple people, and one of my classmates wrote the music, and it was all very terrible in terms of the creative merit, but it was getting me into the world that was getting me into New York from being in the Midwest and just having I think I used this reference with you. Like, I had no idea what the entertainment business was. I sat next to Bobby Daly on a plane once, and said,
name dropping. We know Bobby.
And I didn't, but he said, my dad is like the chairman or head of Warner Brothers. And I was like, cool. Like, I didn't realize that was important. I didn't know what that was, but I was like, that's cool. So,
so I have to ask, are you still in touch with some of these people, with some of your Trinity, either classmates or people that you've met subsequently from Trinity?
Well, definitely. First of all, my Trinity, I have a pack of girlfriends who are still, even if we're out of touch for a little bit, are the people that we sort of go to for like monumental world events, like elections. All of a sudden we'll start texting, what's going on here? There's something super important about that relationship. Yeah, I mean, again, I won't name names, but Lonnie Stewart, I'm in touch with for sure, and who I did the play with, and there's quite a crew, and there's a lot of Trinity alum. One of my colleagues and favorite people is a Trinity graduate, Andrew Dunlap's one of the partners here as well, and
okay.
And there are quite a few of us, but
that's great. And I can tell you, I mean, you know that I speak to a lot of Trinity alums, and those connections are something quite special. And I've been at other institutions, but the connections that Trinity students form with each other, with their peers, and with their faculty members is really quite something special and unique. But I interrupted you with a question. So we got to the point of you graduated and you went to acting school.
Yes.
And you said you weren't that great at it. So what was kind of the next step that led you to the next step towards becoming a talent agent?
And there are the logistical steps, and then there's sort of the emotional, psychological, human maturing journey, which is super important in this, because if I'm really honest, I was a lackluster student. I mean, I enjoyed things, but like being an academic was not, I don't think I was that great at it. And I really didn't have vision for myself. And I remember classmates seeming to have real certainty about things they wanted to do. And so, and I'm stealing from someone, but I was fortunate enough to follow my curiosity. So I went to this acting program, the Neighborhood Playhouse, where actually one of my clients went at the exact same time, but we hooked up much later. But I could recognize in my class that certain people were super compelling and great actors, and I wanted to watch them. And I had a real, I knew that people really didn't want to watch me, but I had a really good eye for who was talented, as most people are, because that's what makes people movie stars. Like, it's sort of, we all know what it's like to want to watch people or to want to be part of what they're creating.
Oh, so the first thing I want to note is that someone wrote in the chat that your birthday is coming up very soon too.
Yes.
Is that correct? Are you also a September birthday?
I am September 24th.
September 24th. So I may be Virgo and you may be Libra, but we're only 3 days apart. So I'm wishing you a very early happy birthday. And I won't tell you exactly what year I graduated from college, but I have a good 10, 11 years on you, at least.
Wow.
Okay. So let's come back a little bit to following your career. So you said you left acting school. You'd really like to make sure you feel like you have a sense of spotting talent. Where do you go from there?
I really spent the early part of my 20s doing off Broadway plays, writing and waitressing and odd jobs. And I really still was quite directionless, but I started to have an understanding of what the business was, because I was meeting with agents, I was meeting with managers, I understood there were casting directors. I started to understand what the business was. So at one point, I just sort of said, I think I should get a job. And I went to go work as an intern at a production company reading scripts. And while I was there, I also became in charge of taking the movie Kids, like starring Chloë Sevigny and a bunch of people, the kind of like pretty important film from the early 90s, and taking them to college campuses, and I would like do a program around them. Nonetheless, that production company fell apart, but I remember I was selling to the schools, I was selling the program, and one of my bosses at the time said, you should be an agent. And I also was able to look at the success my friends were having and the opportunities they were getting in the acting world. And I was giving them really good advice. Like, oh my gosh, don't go on a soap opera. That's, you're going to be taught bad habits, and that's not really for you. That's not what kind of career you should have. You should go do more plays instead. And I just had a feel for what was good advice, basically, and liked giving it.
And so I'm going to tie some of that back to some of that mindset and some of those skills that you learned in that liberal arts education. The discerning
100%.
It's sometimes how to find and see talent.
I think that the liberal arts education is exceptional for this business. Like, it just almost is the apprenticeship for it. It really, because there is no graduate school for this business. you become an assistant, and that's what the graduate program is. But all that I read, all that I saw, I was being at Trinity, I was going to Hartford Stage. I had a lot of like really positive experience in that I wasn't aware I was getting. It just sort of started accumulating.
So tell me, give me a story about something that is really fun about being an agent and something that is really not very fun. Kind of, do you have some examples or stories of like really fun and exciting things that you've had an opportunity to do and others that were a little less pleasant?
I mean, I really am, I have to be honest that this job is, and it's actually more of kind of a life as opposed to a job, but I think really being able to be part of watching people and artists do really special work is really amazing. Sorry about the feedback again. I don't know how to change that, but I think that, an example of what is fun, first of all, what's fun for me is that I'm just such a fan. Like, I'm a fan of these people all the time. And the idea that I get to be adjacent to hearing how they think and them asking my thoughts on something. A good example was I represented a musician, pretty famous musician, and we were having dinner, and she said, I had such a rotten breakup with this guy. And we were talking about the guy and the breakup and stuff. And she was like, screw it, I'm just going to write a record about him. And you know what? We'll see how it goes. And along the way, she played me songs about the guy. And, and in the end, I was part of this process of this person being heartbroken and emotional, and also being gifted enough to take all those feelings and make something, and have this person ask me what I thought along the way and come into my office and play the song and say, remember when we were having, tacos at AOC and we talked about this? Well, this is this. I think that is just an example of just something really wonderful about the proximity to doing this and helping people along the way. It really comes from the people I work with. Have this, obviously there's always an ambition, and there's something that make artists just uniquely oriented in the world. They're different than maybe you and me. You're different because you're a neuroscientist and I don't understand at all how your brain works. My brain barely works. But I think that it's really miraculous to see that. And also, just because someone is at a certain level in their career, it's not easy. And they're competitive with each other, and they have ambitions, and they may look at someone that, is their peer, although like a big movie star, and have desire to work in those kind of movies or something. And there's a real thrill to planning steps to help people get what they want. And and sometimes it's interesting because awards are really fun. You get to go to a big party and you dress up and you win an award. But what it really means is they've been in something that has felt important to audiences. They've moved them in some way. They've told a story in some way that is meaningful and that felt good to do, and helping them do that. And as we're advocates. Like, we are calling directors, we're calling producers, and we're saying, I know you're thinking about hiring blank, but let me talk to you about why my client would be amazing for this. Like, you may not know that this client actually has a family member who is this. I'm being very vague because I don't like to talk so specifically, but
Right.
you know people intimately, and you know, agents have this sort of old school reputation as kind of like flesh peddlers, but you're really talking about what someone can offer a project that people might not be thinking of.
So can you talk, well, first of all, I wanted to point out that what you were describing, or what it sounds like to me, is that you really like the people that you work with. Because I think when you see some Hollywood movies about talent agents, it doesn't always feel as though they like their clients. And what is coming across to me is that it sounds like you actually like them. You have their best interest at heart. And that feels like the fundamental start of the relationship. So if I'm correct, tell me how typical you think that is in Hollywood, and what the Hollywood industry is a little bit like, and how you therefore find these artists that maybe you're going to be able to connect to. And how much selection is them and you?
Ooh, it's a lot of questions. Okay. I think that a huge common denominator is that the people who do this absolutely love it. And my clients, in a non-creepy way, you kind of have to fall in love with them a little bit, whether that's their talent. I mean, again, in the non-creepy way. There are plenty of people who I recognize as talented that I might not necessarily have the right chemistry for, or even the right vision for. I love my clients, and it's a very unique relationship because it's definitely business, and you are someone that tells them the truth. And these are people that get said yes to a lot of times. And you have to earn that trust. And so it's a very specific relationship, and they really depend on you to tell them the truth, because we're one of the few people who will. Like, if someone is in a movie that isn't very good, you will have to say you are in a movie that is not very good, and go from there in terms of what you might decide next. But I'm also just really lucky to work with some absolutely killer human beings, just in terms of generosity, kindness, humor. And I think it's actually, even when we're miserable in our jobs, my colleagues and I would all say, we don't want anything, would never want to do anything else.
That's pretty amazing. So are there sometimes blurring of lines between friendship and the business aspects? Because it feels as though sometimes if you get so close, and I mean, you're sounding like, once again, describing a friendship sometimes, and not always a business relationship.
I try and be pretty specific about that. I think when you are a young agent, that's something you learn, because they can fire you and your friends can fire you, but it's not the same. I mean, it isn't a two-way street. I would not expect any of my clients to bail me out of jail if I end up in jail. You know, that I'm calling a friend for. So it is unique in the sense that it's business, and there's an intimacy that involves knowing someone's life and caring about it and advocating for it. And all relationships are different. I mean, to be honest, I think that all clients have different feelings about who we are in the business. I mean, some people that we're just like the dentist, you know, and we're a necessary thing that has to be part of their lives, and some people, you know, really count on us. And we're there for a lot of very specific things, because again, you're just privy to their lives. You're privy to divorces and heartbreak and family emergencies and all sorts of things that it's just very unique. But I try, you know, and we go out and we exchange, you know, we have so much fun. You travel with people, but it's not friendship. It's a business relationship.
It's business. Okay, so another question I have for you. How has the business changed in your 25 years?
Well, there wasn't the internet. And it's changed extraordinarily. And I think that that's a good thing in many ways. Like I would never want to go back. There's so much opportunity going forward. I think that just on a personal note, what I really loved and still love was the cinema experience of going into a theater when phones didn't exist, and you would have a full emotional experience watching a story that was complete. No one had a phone next to you. And I think that I really believe that art and movies and theater are super important to people, not important in a way that sometimes people think it is, but important in people, like if you're, I don't know, a doctor, whatever, what kind of life you have, to be able to go and be emotionally transported and have a full experience, which I don't think people have that much anymore. That's just me kind of talking about something that's different in terms of going to the movie theater. But just in terms of a business, streaming services have, you know, changed things. Our phones have changed things. People's attention spans have changed. The kinds of people who are meaningful in terms of making movies. I mean, when I started out, it was, you know, it was very different in terms of there were no TikTok stars on Netflix.
Right.
Which is, you know, wild.
Right. But I think in one of our conversations, you suggested to me also that maybe 25 years ago, maybe I don't have the time frame quite right, when you were an agent, you were reading scripts saying, is this a good job or not? Now a lot of the actors want to be the directors, producers, have percentages of the different kinds of projects they're in. They aren't just doing, you know, a film or a play, but they also are perhaps part of, you know, have a Nike contract. And does it feel that way just to me, or has it actually become more complicated?
I think it's become more great. I mean, I think there's so much opportunity to, because as an actor, you're depending on someone to hire you. If you are optioning a book, a story that you want to tell. I have a client who is executive producing The Overstory, a book that I love so much recently.
I love that book too.
Yeah, I love that book too. So, and, you know, and he is going to be part of producing it. And you build companies with your clients. You're really building businesses with them. You know, there are very famous production companies that actors have that produce movies that, I mean, you don't even know that they're actually, like Brad Pitt's company Plan B is doing, you know, movies like Moonlight and, you know, things that Brad is not in. And I think that, you know, we represent The Rock, we represent Ryan Reynolds, we represent, you know, people who have their hands in so many things that are genuinely interesting to them, are super great opportunities. And you continue to, but I think more than ever, actors are not like actors for hire. Most of the people that I represent are always reading books, reading articles, what kind of stories can you tell, and, you know, really being producers on it. It's changed enormously, and it's also changed the balance of how they, you know, how they feel in the business, because they can be productive. If you're a musician, you can make music. If you're a writer, you can write. Actors need someone to hire them. So if they have their own projects, when they say they have their own projects, that's what they mean. They grabbed a book and they're going to put a writer on it, and they're going to maybe cast one of their friends, or, you know, there's so much opportunity. I mean, we have, you know, Ryan Reynolds was involved in Aviation Gin. That's a deal that we were involved with, you know, having someone come in at an entry level and being a partnership in something and building a business. And he loves the business. Like, some actors are just pure creative. Like, they're just like, they want to act and they want to, you know, they don't want anything to do with anything else. And then there are people who are just enormously ambitious. Mark Wahlberg is someone, obviously, I mean, has produced tons of television, Boardwalk Empire, Entourage, which is based on this agency. He has an enormous production company that we've built here. So it's a great way to do business, and it's a great way to, you're just very involved. There's nothing that someone can say to you that can't be something. I had, I think I told you this, like, a client of mine said, I want to do a queer ghost hunting reality show with my friends who basically it's gay ghost hunters. And I was like, yeah, we can make that. Let's figure that out. Let's call these production companies, the guys who did Queer Eye and you know, these sorts of things. And let's see if there's a gem there. And it's really just about making a phone call. Like, and that's, I mean, I think what's really great about our agency is, like, from the very top, we've always been encouraged that there is no bad idea. They'd rather see us fail miserably. The messaging has always been like, no matter how bad you blank up, you can be unblanked up. We can help you out. And you have access to anything. They truly would rather get a phone call from some enormous person that someone did something really kind of dumb with, but made a shot at doing something with, and failed, you know?
So I'm going to take now a few questions that are in the chat. And first of all, I'm going to say thank you for all the people who wrote in the chat. I finally have muted enough things that unless I'm asking a question, you're not getting feedback. So awesome job. And I love all the problem solvers in the Trinity community. But I will ask a question or two, put myself on mute, and let Stephanie answer. So here's one question. How did COVID change things? And how do you see the industry moving forward?
Well, I mean, the immediate, I mean, again, being oriented towards our own company was, I mean, this is a live events business. We have concerts, we have theater, we have sports, we have Fashion Week. And when COVID hit, it was like, oh, wow. Like, it just wiped out the business, you know, and theater and movie theater. So it was a big shift. I mean, just because it was absolutely kind of terrifying. But I think that it was also great in that, I mean, COVID wasn't great. There's nothing great about COVID, but there are things that you realize are really important to people, how much those things mean to people to be able to have live events and the sort of the fervor to get back to those sorts of things. I mean, the truth of the matter is COVID changed things on a very huge day-to-day basis for me in terms of just getting people to work. You know, actors had to go back to work and to sets, and there were no vaccines. and I started learning about COVID protocols and which
Right.
countries I could get people in and out of and what it would take. And I know so much about COVID protocols. I know so much about Australia, quarantines.
Mhm.
And then of course there was just a, there's a fear, of course, of going to work. And again, that's the psychology of it, of people who, really didn't want to be on a set and were nervous and scared, and they have family to take care of. It also just changed production schedules. Everything shut down. People had things lined up. There was a lot of logistics, but the industry is functioning really well in terms of how much testing there is, how safe people feel at work. I mean, I would like to work on a movie set. You're tested, almost every day. The expense, that's a huge change. Whenever you do a production now, COVID costs are part of the budget. So
Right.
you've got to attribute, millions of dollars towards keeping people safe.
And
But
what about the future? Do you think it's going to cause some major shifts in movie going behavior or theater going behavior that you might have to adjust to?
It may, but I mean, pretty recently, if you make a movie that people want to go see, people are going to the theater. That what they're now doing is, concurrently releasing things on streaming and in the theater. And I think given the choice, a lot of people do stay home. It feels safer. But if you release something like Free Guy and it's only in the movie theater, people go to the movie theater. So you have to keep encouraging people to go to the movie theater. And again, I think that's something that people just really like the experience of. But I do think that, there's so many. I mean, the truth is, I'm a TV junkie. A limited series is totally my jam because, they don't make those movies anymore, really. Just like the emotional, Mayor of Easttown kind of things where you get involved in all the characters. That's not something that they're putting on the big screen as much anymore. It's mostly tentpole and IP. And I was someone who, as a 8-year-old, was watching Terms of Endearment and Ordinary People over and over again that's my own psychology. But I like those stories. Emotional
content. Yeah.
I'm not a superhero girl.
So one other question that I see coming up frequently is advice that you would give someone who is trying to find an agent, trying to be an agent. What advice do you have? And then I'm going to mention at the end of this, kind of what you mentioned you might be able to do for us on that front.
Well, trying to be an agent, I think I'm going to try and be very careful about this. I think working at an agency is an incredible entree to all aspects of the business because you're privy to all the things I talked about: production, casting directors, publicity, and you don't need to go, that is the graduate school, is working at, and I would recommend a big agency. That's, even when I was young, I knew that I wanted to be at one of the top agencies because I wanted to represent people at the highest level, because I didn't want to represent people who might leave their agency once they got going. I didn't want to develop some talent and then have them say, bye, I'm going to WME, because that's where my career has sent me. So I think that, and also working at a place, at an agency, and that's just, that is going, I've been at the agency since it was like a baby agency, and it was pretty cowboy then. We're actually have methods and ways and process to getting people hired, but we're extremely conscious that we need to be looking far and wide, and that really great candidates come from all over the place. And we need to, the business is telling different stories. We need to be hiring people that normally don't have, access. I didn't know how to get into this world, and it's pretty simple, actually. If you have a love, like I really believe it's like Bachelor or Bachelorette. You have to be there for the right reasons. You got to be there for the right reasons. Like if it's to be adjacent to famous people or some idea of what it is, it's not the place to be. But if you love this stuff, you will find your path working at an agency. And I was speaking earlier, and I said I would set up a Gmail account that I think people can reach out to me for, and then have to give me patience but I can, offer some guidance if people want to know, because I really, I have a lot of, I wish I had someone like me say, like, this is just what you do. I mean, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but this would have been helpful to me to understand that this is something you can do. And, I have people working for me who've gone to law school, who've gone to business school, who are so much smarter than I am. And I'm like, I can't believe you're doing this, but that is the graduate school of this business, is being an assistant. And, assistants are on most of our phone calls, and you just learn by osmosis. Like, every fire, every day starts with a plan, and, it's, you have a plan and then you get punched in the mouth, but every day something gets set on fire. And that's how you really learn how to deal with this business.
Now that sounds like my job. But that's incredibly generous that you were willing to, and we will get out a list, or that Gmail account, to the list of people who signed up for this, so that people who are affiliated with the Trinity community can speak directly or have direct contact. But one thing I want to point out, because you've mentioned this a couple of times in your background, and that is you didn't come from an entertainment family that introduced you and told you, do this, this is how you get an agent, this is how you become an agent. So what I have found in our conversations is your particular sensitivity to people who are trying to break into the entertainment industry and don't come with lots of family ties and connections to do so.
I do have a sensitivity to that. And I think that people who are well suited for this business come from everywhere. And the business and the world is, changing in such a remarkable way in terms of stories being told, and, voices that have not been heard. It's the same in terms of our company, and we really want to foster an environment of really supporting a much more diverse group of people than we have traditionally been associated with the entertainment industry, which is, very, it's shifted a lot. It's
Right.
shifted, and
it needs to shift some more. I'm sure we would all agree.
Yeah.
I will give you one final question, because I think it's just cute. Can an introvert, antisocial type make it?
I think that I'm going to be really honest here. I am an introvert. I am super happy being alone and reading, which is great for my job. I had to really learn how to be comfortable being forceful, and not even forceful. Here's what happens to an introvert. All I do is talk on the phone all day. It's really depleting, and you're giving a lot of energy of yourself. and you're really giving. And that's where, even when you talk about the relationship between friendship, etc., like you don't get to just hang and just say like, oh, let's see how this conversation goes. Like you are giving an energy to it. And you know, I just go home and just sit there mouth agape again, watching Bachelor in Paradise. So, but I think that it is good for introverts. There are a lot of introverts. You just don't know when you're getting into it that it's not a good job for you. So it's nice to, if someone knows they're an introvert, and I will say it's not a great job for you, but it's also super rewarding because you do get to read a lot. I can't say enough about the people I work with. There's enormous, people in this business, I mean, most of them, you know, again, there's just so much love. What's not to love about a job where you read scripts all day or books or articles and watch movies? I mean, the bad part is you watch movies and you've read most of them, so you know the ending, or you have really angry feelings because your client wasn't cast in them or something happened hostile towards the movie. But so that's the bad and the good. But I think that it's an introvert can make it. And I also have to give a big shout out to Cinestudio. I think it is one of the most fabulous places that exist. I had a mind-bending, forever traumatizing experience watching Koyaanisqatsi there. And it still haunts me to this day. And there was a Facebook thread that my friend Doug Kim has on Facebook about all about the what were the movies you remember seeing at Cinestudio. I wish I could bring it up. And all these people have these like really, you know, serious memories of going to Cinestudio. I just think it's a very special place, and you know, that feeds a lot of people, Cinestudio.
Well, that I agree, and it absolutely feeds me. And it was one of the things that I could still do during the pandemic because Cinestudio remained open. And even though there weren't always students here on campus, I could go and just become completely immersed in a film. It is truly one of our Trinity treasures. So our time is up. I feel like I know, we're just getting going. People have been very generous while we were trying to work through some technical difficulties. We will capture the chat function for you, Stephanie, so you'll be able to see lots of the comments and people who were trying to get questions in that I just didn't have time to do. And then we will get that Gmail account that you're going to set up for these special Trinity people, because I have heard you say now 3 times on different occasions how much you want to offer your help for people in this community who are interested in the business, looking for advice, trying to get a hand up. And for that, I thank you enormously.
Oh, it is my pleasure.
And this won't be the last time that and next time we'll make sure we get some of those technical difficulties worked out. But I hope this is just the first of one of our Zoom interactions and one of many interactions that we will have in the future. Stephanie, you have been generous with your time. You're funny, you're smart, and you make me very, very proud to be part of this community.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really do look forward to hearing from people, and will do my best to offer any thoughts or suggestions if people are curious about, you know, our company or the business. And I'm really jealous. I wish I wish I were there right now, September. I mean,
it is gorgeous and the weather is perfect.
Well,
for our birthday season.
Birthday season, very special. Youth is wasted on the young. I wish I could do it all over again and be less of a lackluster academic, but you know, it gave me quite a bit, including my closest friends, which is really important to me. And I really appreciated reflecting on that too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you to the entire Trinity community that joined us here this evening. Thanks so much. And we will now sign off. Goodbye.
Bye.